Blog Talk Radio.
Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. I sense your presence. And I am the light within your soul. In the essence of truth and right, love makes the circle whole. And here we stand in line, waiting for some sacred sign. But to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And in the presence of my Lord of light and love, everything I see aspiring to be free. And when I call to thee, and come on bended knee, surrender to the all-pervading light and love. Reflections of the one surrounding me with love. And I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Within and without, above and below, yeah. East, west, north, and south, I sense your presence. Without and within, below and above, yeah. East, west, north, and south, I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Presence of my Lord of light and love, everything I find in tune with the divine. And here we stand in line, waiting for some sacred sign. But to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And I am the light within your soul. In the essence of truth and right, love makes the circle whole. And when I call to thee, and come on bended knee, surrender to the all-pervading light and love. Reflections of the one surrounding me with love. For to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, holy angel of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. I sense your presence.
Thank you for joining me here tonight on Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. My name is Jessie Ann Nichols George, and I'm your hostess this evening. You were just listening to the song I Sense Your Presence. It's by Shemshai, a great little group that I met when I was hanging out in the Arizona area. I met them up in the Sedona part of that, and they're now traveling all over the world doing amazing things, of course, and enjoying putting out more and more new music all the time. And I just want to extend a welcome, whether you're joining us here for the first time or whether you've listened to the show before and you're coming back in because you enjoy what I'm doing here. And here at Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour, I look at different ways that compassion exists in our lives, how to remove our blocks, resistances, frustrations, and more. And some weeks I'm looking at discussing different aspects of how compassion is in our life and how it affects our life, as well as maybe the different areas of compassion. And then some weeks I'm doing more exercises and practical implementations. Sometimes my guests do that when I've got guests on, and actually pretty much most of this year, and I'm already lining up quite a few incredible guests for next year as well. They're just all kind of rolling in the door. They know this is the place to be. And in addition to that, I also highlight some musical artists along the way. This year I've been blessed to have Jill Matson on the show, also Stephen Halpern and Peter Cater, both Grammy nominee artists in the New Age genre. So I'm looking at also lining up some other amazing musical artists for 2014 for you. And then in my own work, what I do is I focus on helping people find and use compassion in their everyday lives. And I've created the Genesis Clearing Statement, which some of you have experienced on previous shows. Actually, you could go back to just over a little past a year ago, and there's one that Kevin Baird, one of our other hosts here on the network, did of me, working with the Genesis Clearing Statement, and it was really a great example of how that all comes together. And then I've also authored 4 books now. I've authored the most recent 2 are You, Me, Life, Dreams, and also You, Me, Life, Dreams, the Workbook. And then my first 2 books, Activating Compassion and also Activating Compassion, the Workbook. In addition, I've created the Compassion Tour, which is a multi-state nationwide tour, including workshops, retreats, seminars, book signings, and fundraising events. And I'm already working on creating that 2014 tour. I know I'm going to be starting with event in the Santa Barbara area, and that's actually going to be a taping for a PBS show with Bridging Heaven and Earth, which airs in the Santa Barbara region. That also is they put that online, so it'll be something people can catch afterwards as well. And that is something that people can come in and watch us film if they want. And if you're interested in doing that, you can definitely connect up with me through my email, jessie@jessieandnicholsgeorge1.com, and I can give you more information on that as that time comes up as well if you're interested in being there live for the taping on that. And then you can also follow the events for the tour at jessieandnicholsgeorge.eventbrite.com. And there's also an option there called Gifting the Tour. So maybe you're not able to attend, but you'd like to help me get out to some of those fundraisers, and you can gift any amount that you choose through that option. Now, just a reminder, if you enjoy the show tonight, make certain that you share it with your friends, families, significant others. You got all that great social media out there. You can share it with them, and I find it's amazing. I'll bring up a topic about something and go, oh, I'm really looking forward to this guest that I have coming on tonight. They're talking about this or they're talking about that, and people are like, oh, I so need to listen to that show. And you don't always know who that person is going to be or who's really going to draw in and go, yes, I want to listen to that. So, definitely share it with them. They can just come right in at the same link, and the archives are available immediately following the show, so that's a great option as well. And so that's really, you just never know who it's going to affect and who's going to need it. They can also go to 2 other places to catch the archived shows. That's on my website at jessieandnicholsgeorge1.com, and also on my Facebook page, which is Facebook www.activatingcompassion.com/activating-compassion/notes. And as those of you that have listened to the show before know, I really love to delve into, at the beginning of my show, a message for the week and the show here. And I take this message and post it on my page under the Main Street Universe tab on my website. And you'll find that's where all the archive shows are for my Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. But what I do is randomly open here to this book because that's what always comes up, something that fits with what's going on. And let's see what this is done by Yehuda Berg, and it's the 72 Names of God, Technology for the Soul. And let's see where our message is at tonight. And we have no guilt. This is going to be interesting. No guilt on here. And the message here is repentance purifies. It cancels judgments and it annuls sentences of death decreed against us in the upper world. And the insight that he gives with this is the concept of repentance is vastly misunderstood. It has nothing to do with a guilt trip or fear. Repentance is about repairing prior misdeeds by feeling the pain that we've caused to others, by abolishing the actual negative trait responsible for their hurt. Through the power of repentance, our souls journey back to the precise moment prior to our spiritual infraction. The damage has been undone, provided we have meditated with deep remorse to eradicate the character trait that originally induced our offense. So how does this alleviate the suffering of the victim of our crime? Kabbalah says there are no victims. The person who was injured injured by our misdeed warranted this negative act as a result of a misdeed that he or she committed at a prior time. Our own pain and repentance are not the result of hurting an innocent victim. Rather, our remorse pertains to our being chosen as the executioner of the sentence, the deliverer of a judgment that was already decreed against this person. And the pain we agreed to take on is used to cleanse the nasty trait that led us to be a courier for wrongdoing in the first place. A person who is spiritually pure and righteous will never be selected to execute judgment against a fellow human being. And the meditation that he provides with this is recall any negative deeds from your past. Reflect on some of your more unpleasant traits. Feel the pain of the people you have hurt. Ask the light to eradicate all your negative attributes. The force called repentance spiritually repairs your past sins and diminishes the dark side of your nature. And this is really interesting because the concept here, and again, he kind of takes these big things and puts them into everyday language, so to say, is, I really love this aspect in the sense that the pain, where the pain comes from, is really being called to be the executioner in the situation. And I think that that's the challenging part, is being that. And how can we shift that? How can we shift into this more healing space? But even more importantly, that we can actually avoid that pain by, by simply correcting our own ways, by simply walking in right action ourselves. And that's a concept that spreads all the way through many things in our life. We stop feeling a lot of pain once we start living in that so-called clear space and divine space. Now, no guilt is the common name for this Word of God, but the name pronunciation that goes with this is Hey Chet Shin. Hey Chet Shin. So there we go. There's our message from Yehuda tonight. Always a blessing to get that. And I want to bring a little bit of insight to where we're headed tonight and the topic that we have going on. So let's take a look at some things here. Why do smells have such an impact on us? What leads some smells to be intoxicating and others repulsive? And how do we know which oils can be mixed to create soothing scents, while other mixtures can be lethal to our health? There is no question that the fact that scents strongly engage one of our key senses, and anytime this happens, it will have a strong impact on us. So anytime one of our key senses is engaged, it's really going to impact us. However, there is so much more to it than that, and so much more to this whole picture than what we just smell. And scents have been used in place of medicine and psychologists for quite a long time. The ancient Egyptians knew it. The peasants of many countryside villages knew it. Any town herbalist or healer knew it. They knew that smelling certain plants would calm people down and that others would excite them. All cultures seem to include aromas and the value of oils into it, although Americans may not be quite as engaged as other cultures on this. This art and science has been highly valued, and I have to say it is true that the carrying and the process that is put into an oil has a great effect on that oil. So kind of like if somebody's working with those oils, the emotions and what they're feeling and how much they care about that process definitely has an impact on what that oil is going to provide. And I was once given some sandalwood oil, for example, from Nepal, and I think about this time of year because it came to me in November, in mid-November, a few years ago. And I've never found an oil that matched it. And it has something to do with coming out of that region. And the energies of that region certainly seem to influence the vibrational aspects of the oils. Oils are truly sacred gifts in many places and cultures. And just look at the value they carried when ancient Egyptians with their burial processes. And it being gifts, for example, from like the wise men for Christ. And there are many more examples out there of the role that oils have played in things. Now, over time, we've learned that there is so much more to oils than just a pretty scent. Just like drinking herbal teas or listening to music, oils have an impact on our brain. They have a chemical influence to our body, mind, and spirit. And different scents trigger different brain patterns and responses in us physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. It is truly a science. Wendy Gormley Kester is one of the few registered aromatherapists in the U.S. She sees her work as not only a way to assist people spiritually, but also as a science. She acknowledges that oftentimes, while people may at first draw to a very strong scent, that it may be the scent that is a bit more subtle that has the true impact. We could say, compare this to the pauses in musical patterns. The notes are very important, but how they are put together and the breaks between the notes really bring the song together for us. I at one point also had my own line of oil blends, and it was something I could indulge in for probably endless amount of hours. I would get lost working with them. And it's true, the ability that they have to shift us between different moods and thoughts, even just by working with them, even by just creating things. They affect our hormones and chemistry in our body as well. And while a scent is just a scent, like most things in nature, its simplicity holds the universal wisdom and understanding within it in a truly beautiful and enjoyable way. It's a true gift of healing from nature. What are your experiences with scents and aromas? How do you enjoy using essential oils? And do you have favorites that you prefer to work with? This week, our guest focuses on a component of compassion that is related to the aspect in my books of creating a new world. This reminds us to be aware of what fulfills us, to act on that, share it with others, and to bring fulfillment to both ourselves and others. I'm going to be taking a short break, and when we return, I will have Wendy Gormley Kester with us, and she's going to be sharing her work in aromatherapy and her line, which is called Soothing Science. And the song that I've got for you during our break tonight is called Waves. It's by Claire Hedin, and some of you may remember Claire. She was on the last show of 2012 with me, so last year, and incredible music. If you'd like to find out more about her work, her projects that she's doing in nature, and the music that she does, you can just head on over to her website at www.clarehedin.com. That's CLAREHEDIN.com. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Waves crashing down on me. Thought the waiting was over. Thought the search was done. Thought that I had found in you, that special one. Well, seems I was mistaken, and it seems that I have yet to find someone with a heart in their soul and a soul in their mind.
Welcome back, and you're listening to Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. My name is Jessie Ann Nichols George, and I am your hostess this evening. You were just listening to a song called Waves, which is by Claire Hedin. And again, you can find out more about Claire's work by simply going onto our website, which is www.clairehedin.com. That's CLAREHEDIN.com. And I would like to bring on my guest tonight. Her name is Wendy Gormley Kester. She is the Chief Executive Alchemist and Aromatherapist, CEO and co-founder of Soothing Science, a high quality and artisan essential oil line. Wendy is one of 400 registered aromatherapists from the Registration of Aromatherapy Council. She handcrafts all alchemology products, does consultations and customized therapeutic blends for clients, and provides monthly meetings for aromatherapy enthusiasts, as well as classes and workshops. We will be looking tonight at her work with crafting oils and the blends that move body, mind, and spirit. And you can also learn more about Wendy's work at www.alchemologyshop.com and www.facebook.com Alchemology, Apothecary, and Natural Perfumery. I'm twisting my tongue up here tonight. And those are at the bottom of the show description, so you can simply click on those links. That might be easier than trying to get me to get all of that out. And Wendy, I want to welcome you here to Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour and say thanks so much for giving us your time tonight.
Oh, thank you. I've really been looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, and you know, just for our listeners, I connected with you last year when I was just kind of getting into social media stuff, and I was making a last-minute trip down the California coast because somebody says, hey, I need you to come out here and do an interview on your brand new work that you're doing, Activating Compassion. And so I remember I was scrambling and thinking, great, how many book signings can I sign up in less than a 2-week period? And I remember having this little space, and I contacted you, and I said, how would you like to have me do a book signing at your shop? And we kind of connected that way, and I was very, very impressed with your oils, having been a person that has done oils in the past myself. I was very impressed with coming in to where you are and where you're located, and it was just amazing to be there.
It was great having you. I really enjoyed the afternoon.
Definitely. And, you know, what I would like to have you do is to start off by sharing with our listeners a little bit about your background, like who's Wendy and how did Wendy get involved in doing oils and eventually going up to her own line of things?
Well, you may be surprised, but the majority of my background has been in sales and business development, in high tech, and I even worked for one of the largest defense contractors for quite some time. But I always felt something was missing. I always wanted to get involved in a field where I could help people. While I had a pretty stressful Silicon Valley job, I spent nights and weekends going to massage therapy school thinking that was my direction, only to go through it for 9 months and find out that that's not what I wanted to do. And then I went the route, because I had been involved with horses for years, I went the route of equine massage therapy and found that to be very hard on the body. Went back into just continuing to work in sales. I had become a national sales manager for a wellness company that was somewhat involved with scents, but more from an herbal aspect than essential oils. At the time I was working for that company, we had some things that happened in our family that gave me the opportunity to look at changing my career. And I'd always been really passionate about essential oils. I think I had first been made aware of them when maybe I was about 12. I'd been given a book for Christmas. It was the classic veterinarian encyclopedia for the horse. And it was written back in the 1800s. And I was fascinated at the use of peppermint oil and wintergreen and birch and all these natural substances to be used as liniments and different healing compounds for horses rather than the modern-day synthetic chemicals that we were using. So when I had the option to change my career, I looked into it, and I went back to school, which is never easy after a certain age in life, and I became an aromatherapist.
That's awesome. It's an interesting path, I think, when we look at some of these things, and we never quite know sometimes where that path is coming or why something shuts down or why something happens in our personal life, and oftentimes it is leading us onto this other path. And I know that you still do a lot of work with horses or have horses, because I see the pictures up every now and then on things. And you're in a beautiful area. For those that don't know where Wendy's store is located, it's in Capitola, California, and that is not too far away from the Santa Cruz region, like Santa Cruz Mountains and things like that. So there are some more wilderness, open land areas out there that are horse properties. So it's really an interesting area that she's in. And I think that's an interesting path to take, actually, to go in and take it from working with horses and then bring it into the actual store area. Now, you mentioned that you're a registered aromatherapist, one of about 400 in the entire U.S., which is not much, because we look at, like you say, you get those books from the 1800s, and a lot of stuff comes from more back in the England area or other things that are, a lot of other countries are much more focused, let's face it, than we are as Americans on blending this into culture. So when you say that you're a registered aromatherapist, why is that important? Because we have all these people that do like doTERRA and all these other, oil companies out there, but why is it important to work with a registered aromatherapist?
Well, being a registered aromatherapist, I got my I achieved my title through a school recognized by both the National Association of Holistic Aromatherapy and the Alliance of International Aromatherapists. They will take a look at a school's curriculum and decide if it meets their standards, which means there has to be education on organic chemistry, anatomy and physiology. We touch on neurology and also history of medicine. Those are just some of the subjects that have to be in the curriculum. It's really important. Let me go back to the registered aromatherapist. That's taking a little bit of a step further because it's not a regulated industry like massage therapy. You can go to a school and get a title. The reason I wanted to go and get my registered aromatherapist title is it really stretched my education and made me push further and learn more, and I guess become part of this group of people that had that same drive and ambition to really learn as much as we could about aromatherapy. The reason why it is a very good idea to be knowledgeable in the essential oils is, like other natural substances, used improperly, they can actually be very dangerous. Wintergreen is high in some chemical components that, if applied to the skin, can actually have very bad side effects on the liver if one is on blood thinners like warfarin and Coumadin. Peppermint should never be used on children under 5 years old. I heard a recent case where a woman put neat peppermint oil on her child's feet, her 13-month-old baby's feet. The menthol content causes or can cause seizures, and the little girl ended up in the hospital for a week from seizures. I'm certainly not trying to scare people away from using essential oils, but it's really good to know how to use them properly. You're not going to get a lot of problems if you're just dealing with the side of essential oils with inhalation. That's fairly safe. It's when you start getting into the situations where you're considering ingesting them or using them without diluting that there can definitely be some health risks with them. And that is why it's really good to be well educated in the use of essential oils. And what I do suggest to people that are with some of these companies that are the multi-level companies is seek education outside of the umbrella of the company. Expand your education away from that and really get a feel for what's right for you. There's a lot of really good teachers out there. There's a lot of really good seminars. Take the time to go out and learn from the people that have been in the industry for years so you're using the oils safely for your friends and family.
And I think this is a big thing, not just for people that are working with these companies, and I think you're absolutely right, because a lot of them come in and it's just about sales for them. They don't even know about the oils and how they interact, because I've talked to some of those people when they've been at different shows or things like that, and they know, well, this will help your headache go away, but they know that only because that's what the company told them it would do, and not because they actually have training in that area. And you're bringing up some things that are very important, because a lot of people, they don't realize that if somebody is truly trained in this area, that they do have this more medical background, for lack of better terminology. They have this awareness of the physiology aspect and not just the mental side or the emotional side or what somebody has told them that it does. And so I'm so glad you're bringing that up, and I wanted to point out, too, because this was something I was going to mention anyways later, but I'm going to do it because you brought it up, is that you've got a great post on your Facebook page regarding the use of straight essential oils on the skin and the cautions about doing that, because especially with something, you mentioned things like peppermint oil and things like this that have that high menthol content. And see, for me, those make me high, by the way. I used to work around eucalyptus trees one time for a program called We Tip, which is a kind of crime prevention program. And like 2 hours into my shift into this one area in Palos Verdes, California, I would be so buzzed I would be staggering up to the doorsteps. And, it was not a good thing. But anyways, getting back to the point, you have one on there with something especially like cinnamon oil. And, I was going to have you share about that, about putting the oils direct as opposed to the diluting, because a lot of people don't realize that. When I did oil blends, I did sell oils, by the way, that were straight oils, but I also labeled on there that they were to be added to something and not to be straight on the skin because of things like what you're talking about. And people wanted to get a perspective, they should go to your webpage or your Facebook page and see that for themselves, what it can do.
Yeah, that's what, it's the old, I like to go by the rule that less is more. They've actually done studies with MRSA, which is the methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. If anyone listening hasn't heard about it, it's a problem in a lot of hospitals. Patients get this in wounds, or it can. It's basically Staphylococcus aureus. We all have it on our body. Methicillin is the main antibiotic used to fight it. And we have this methicillin-resistant version of it where when the body is run down, the MRSA can erupt on the body, and it can present itself as lesions. I believe they also refer to it as the flesh-eating bacteria. They have some pretty nasty pharmaceutical washes. If you have MRSA, if you have a MRSA lesion, say if you're a woman and you're going to shave your legs, you have to use a special type of soap so that you can keep the MRSA at bay, and that way if you accidentally nick yourself with the razor, you won't spread it to another area. They've actually found that a wash with a 5% tea tree solution is just as effective, if not more effective, against MRSA than this nasty pharmaceutical body wash. I mean, there's a case right there. Why would you put 100% pure tea tree on your body for something like that when 5% is working just fine?
Mm-hmm. And you bring up a good point with that, because so many times people think, well, more is better, stronger is better, and it really isn't necessarily. And, you know, we get in that context because we have to stop and think, and I'm sure you train people about this in your workshops and courses and things like that, that when we're putting things on our skin, that can go directly into our bloodstream. So it's not like it's a surface thing. You know, it is going to go internally.
Yes, and the problem is also when you're putting something on your body like that, your body can end up rebelling against it. A colleague of mine that's been an aromatherapist for about 35 years cannot be around lavender. She used lavender neat so much in her past and was exposed to it so much in her past that she now has a sensitization to it and will even get almost an asthma-like reaction if she inhales it. So the body acts in strange ways, and if you don't need to subject it to large numbers of a substance for wellness, there's really no reason to. I mean, I think a lot of the time people look at natural substances that aren't in the realm of using them all the time, because there are a lot of people switching over from modern pharmaceuticals to searching for natural ways for maintaining their health, like essential oils and herbs. But they're coming at it with the attitude that, well, if it's natural, it's okay for me. Arsenic's natural, but in the right dose, it's not okay.
Exactly. There's a lot of natural stuff out there that, you know, even a little bit can be very, very dangerous. And I think people forget that because there are all these compounds and they're looking at it saying, well, it's just straight tea tree oil, or it's just straight peppermint oil, or things like this. And what they're not realizing is all of those plants and the oils that are coming, you know, from the plants, they have these different properties in them. And, you know, for example, my sister has a latex allergy. So there's certainly certain oils she would never work with because they have something in them that is related to latex. Or,
absolutely.
You know, we don't some of these things. We think, well, I'm allergic to peppermint, but then they don't stop and think, well, wintergreen, spearmint, catnip, you know, some of these other plants and herbals and things like that are in that same family. They've got the same properties. Or like you mentioned earlier, and this is why I would suggest somebody ask people, do you have an actual credential? Are you certified? Are you registered, even better yet, as a aromatherapist? Because, you know, as you mentioned, it's you've got all these little aspects that, you know, even things like the menthols, the peppermints and stuff like that, they can really hit your lungs if you're not careful.
Oh, exactly. And a lot of people think, you know, eucalyptus for asthma. Certain species of eucalyptus can actually bring on asthma attacks in some individuals. And it's frightening to think that someone that gets a weekend training course is going to have their child inhale eucalyptus globulus for an asthma attack and actually increase the effects of it rather than making them feel better and calming it down. Yes.
And so that's where somebody like yourself with this extra credential could help them realize, okay, I know it's got these extra properties in it, so if you're on blood thinners, you shouldn't be having wintergreen. If if your kid's having an asthma attack and they're allergic to this, you're not going to want to give them eucalyptus.
Exactly.
And that comes back to the aspect of that dilution factor, that your body's going to respond to it. And our noses are so used to, unless you live in a really pure area, and there's not a lot of those, unfortunately, anymore, your nose is already affected so much that something that, unless you have a hypersensitivity to smell, you may not be smelling everything, but it can still be extremely strong.
You're exactly right, because, we're not only dealing with the smell itself, we're dealing with the molecules of the organic chemicals that are in the essential oil. And it's those molecules that are having a different effect on our body. This may be a good time to kind of go into the whole thing about the olfactory and how smell has an effect on us and how the essential oils have an effect on us. Our olfactory bulbs or nerves are connected directly to our limbic brain. The limbic brain is where memory is matched up with sensation, and it's also what I loosely call the control panel for the endocrine system. It's responsible for releasing or holding back on hormones in the body. So the molecules, as we're smelling them and they're having an impact on that part of our brain, can have an impact in very subtle ways on our entire body.
Mm-hmm. And these are the things that people don't realize. They're like, well, I'm just going to smell this little thing. And when they come to a store like yours, for example, where things are diluted down and they're put in the right quantities and everything like that, it's very unlikely that they would have any kind of difficulty or problem. But when they get in and they go around these places and, especially like the perfumeries, which we can touch on that later, but that's a whole other big thing to open up there. But these places, and they smell all these scents, and it really is having an effect all the way through the physical body. And I do want to touch on that some more. I had somebody, Wendy, ask a question if you knew of any essential oils good for Alzheimer's.
Oh my gosh, you've touched on an area that I have a lot of experience with. We're actually full-time caregivers for my mother-in-law with Alzheimer's. Oh. And there has been a study done on it, and when I say study, this hasn't been incredibly scientific. It was done, I'm sorry, if you can hold on just a second. I've got my computer up right here. I can find it. It was done in a nursing home, and they were using the essential oils in ultrasonic diffusers. In the mornings, they were using, I believe, lavender and grapefruit, pink grapefruit. Pink grapefruit's an interesting essential oil. It's kind of, it'll kind of work the way you need it. It's known to be, I guess it's an adaptogenic is what I like to call it. I've had experience where I've seen it work well as an appetite suppressant, and I've also seen it work well as an appetite stimulant. And in this study, they use lavender and grapefruit in the morning. Grapefruit is also known to be very antidepressive, which can be a big problem with Alzheimer's. And in the evenings for sundowning, they were using an oil called Melissa, which is lemon, made from the herb lemon balm. And they were able to get a large number of the patients within the care home that did this study. They were able to get a large number of them off of antipsychotic medication and lower the instances of sundowning. And also they had an increase in appetite and a decrease in weight loss.
Oh, wow.
So a great way to use the essential oils for in an Alzheimer's situation. I've taken a tissue before when there's been anxiety attacks and put a couple drops of lavender on it and said, oh, hold this, smell it. Doesn't that smell good? And within a few minutes, you could totally see the level of anxiety decrease. Of course, it's going to depend at what level of Alzheimer's the individual is at, because as the disease goes on, we have found that we've had to switch up the essential oils from time to time, or we've had to actually move away from them and unfortunately go more to the medication. But we've been able to hold off for a long time on some of the things that we would have had to do for the mental aspects of the disease by using the essential oils, especially in an ultrasonic diffuser.
This is really amazing, too, because I know that so many places are starting to use the scents and stuff, and it is a big thing. And there is and we'll get into this, too, I think a little bit later in the show here, but there is a big difference between just having the scent, as I mentioned before, and having the actual true essential oil.
Yes.
And things. And the same person was asking also through our chat area, Wendy, would just lemon oil do? And my sense is they're two different things. Lemon oil and lemon balm oil are two different things.
They're completely different, yes. If it is sundowning, you may even be able to, and you haven't used essential oils before, you may even be able to get some decent results just trying lavender by itself. And you would want to make sure that the species is Lavandula angustifolia. Lavandula angustifolia has the higher contents and better balance of the two organic chemicals that we look for that has that calming effect. That is linalool acetate and linalool. So just to add on a little there, it's kind of important to be able to see the Latin name. If your essential oils do not have the Latin name on the bottle, you probably want to look for another brand.
and that's a good point, because it is a differentiation, and there are a lot of different lavender oils out there, and most people don't realize that.
And if you're buying it at Bath & Body Works, you are buying synthetically created scented products.
And this is something that most people are not realizing. Most people are not grasping about that just because something says it's natural doesn't mean that it's high quality.
That's exactly right. And with the aromatherapy, Renee Maurice Gattefossé was the one that coined the term aromatherapy back in France in the 1930s. And whereas it's a beautiful name, sometimes it can confuse people on what it's all about, because it is all about the art and science of using steam-distilled essential oils, not just about smelling something that makes you feel good. Because the important part with aromatherapy is the science behind it and understanding that the organic chemicals that reside in this fluid as a result of the steam distillation process, those organic chemicals that are highly concentrated in that oil are what have the effect on the mind and the body.
Yes. And I'm getting another question coming through. If you can comment on MS, basically multiple sclerosis. And I don't know if there's something with that, if there's an oil that works for that.
You know, it's depending. With multiple sclerosis, like I was talking about with the Alzheimer's, it would really be kind of angling in on the side effects, if you will, or what symptom of the disease you would be looking at. I may be speaking out of line here, but I seem to remember at a seminar that I went to recently with Robert Tisserand, who is kind of at the head of the game on essential oil safety and research. I seem to remember him stating that lavender is not a good oil to use or be around with that challenge. If you want to email me, I will confirm that. I'll look through my workshop notes and confirm that. And I think I may even have gotten a recipe from him that was really good for some of the side effects of MS. I just have to look through my notes from the workshop on that. But for some reason it rings a bell with me that lavender is an oil that you don't want to use. Okay.
And that's what some people don't realize, because we do have these ones that have come up as being, well, this is a great all-purpose oil, lavender is. And while it can work, for example, on a lot of different things, at the same time, people do tend to get it too strong a lot of times. And again, the difference, like you say, in the different types of lavender, and there are certainly things that I could see with MS, and that's one of those ones that we don't stop and think about, because we think, well, that's kind of more nervous system related, and, you know, doesn't lavender calm that down? But like you say, it's kind of specific to what that person's dealing with, and that the calming down is not just the aspect with that particular type of disease. There's other things that are going on with that. And I just love that you're just such a wealth of knowledge, which is why I brought Wendy on the show, by the way, because she has this whole package of being able to explain these things for us. And you started to touch on it definitely, at the synthetics versus the true essential oil. And we can't really stress that enough. It's like, yes, something might smell pretty, but when it's the synthetic oil and you're using those, for example, in the diffusers, you're actually, I would say, most of the time doing yourself a lot more damage than you are good from those.
Yeah, because I believe a lot of the synthetic fragrances, I believe, have petrochemicals in them.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of times when people are having issues with scents and aromas, oftentimes it's because it is a synthetic and not a true oil.
You're exactly right. I have people come in all the time into my shop, and they say, I can't believe I'm standing in here. I should be having an allergic reaction. And I have to explain to them that's because you are in natural, high-quality, around natural, high-quality oils. There's no synthetics. They are all natural. I mean, there will be cases where someone may still have an allergy to an oil based on the plant that it's from, if they are sensitive to that plant. But most of the time I find that even people that are very sensitive allergy-wise don't have a problem with the good quality essential oils.
Yes. I think that that's very true, and my sister has had some of that experience because she is so sensitive to so many different things, and scents are one of the things that are a big issue for her, particularly perfumes and things like that. And, she did get around some high-quality oils not too long ago, or definitely above the average grade, to say the least. And it did make a difference. They weren't bothering her the same way. Granted, there were a couple that are still, because of the nature of her allergies, issues for her, but there's such a big difference. And people don't realize that there really are a lot of chemicals in these synthetic things, these perfumey things in there, and that's really what is affecting us in there. Now, you also mentioned that you are an alchemist and an aromatherapist, and how do you differentiate those things, and how do they work together?
I have to be honest, after having an actual true alchemist in my shop the other day, I use that term lightly for myself. I use the term alchemist in the way that I am taking natural substances and blending them together to create something that's good for health and well-being. Years ago, the alchemists were almost considered the pharmacists, if you will, of the time. Some pretty amazing individuals they were. I love reading the history on alchemy and alchemists. Particularly Paracelsus is one of my favorites to read about. But they actually considered, they had their main elements and essence oils or essential oils was considered a major element to them. So I found that very interesting when I was getting involved with essential oils.
Yeah, and I think that is interesting. I'm glad you differentiated that a little bit for us too, because they do go hand in hand, and it is a skill to really learn how to blend these oils, and it's a little bit of a trial and error too to find just the right balance between the scents in there, because it's not necessarily all those pat formulas like, well, okay, we're going to use 1 part lavender and 1 part grapefruit and 1 part, when you have those stronger scents, you're going to use less than some of the lighter scents to help balance things, or depending on which way you're trying to slant it. And that kind of brings me to another question is, how do you, what do you do to create an oil blend? Because you do have your own line, Soothing Science and Alchemology. And, it's kind of like, how do you know what to blend together, and how do you come about putting the different scents together to create like your blends? Because you have some award-winning blends, and I should mention that as well to people.
Yeah, thank you. We were really excited this year when our Empower blend won International New Age Trade Show New Product of the Year. It was kind of exciting because this was our first year entering it, and we thought, we'll just throw it in there and see what happens, and we ended up winning the biggest prize, so we were very, very excited about that. But usually, first and foremost, I blend for effectiveness. I look at the situation, or the challenge, as I like to call it, that I'm trying to address, and I will make a list of the best essential oils to address that issue or challenge. Then I start looking at, I bring a little bit of perfumery into it and look at the top, middle, and base notes. Usually your top notes are the ones that are going to, you're going to smell those first, and they're going to dissipate more quickly. The middle notes are going to hang around a little longer. They're going to give it a little more complexity. And your base note is going to be the last that you smell, and it's going to be the one that's really going to hold the whole blend together. So I feel, and this is just myself as an aromatherapist, I feel it's important that the blends smell good, even if I'm creating a blend for, say, respiratory health. Because if it doesn't smell good, you're not going to use it. It's going to end up sitting in your medicine cabinet. So that's really my theory behind the blending. And the other thing I find is I don't just blend in the bottle. It's really important to get the oils out into the air and have them exposed to the oxygen. I remember one of my mentors telling me one time that essential oils are beautiful in the bottle, but when they get into the air, they dance. And you really need to get them out of the bottle, and you need to expose them to the air to really get the fine nuances of them. So I tend to put a blend together, and I'll actually leave it for a week or two, because I really feel it takes a little time for the oils to kind of mix together and complement each other. And then I'll go back to it, and I will see what I like about it and see what I don't, and then I will adjust accordingly, but always keeping in mind what I was going to address with the oils in the first place on the medicinal or holistic side.
And I think that is important, and I always thought about a lot of the same thing when I was creating things, is it's got to smell right, because if it doesn't smell right, then it doesn't do somebody any good, because they're not going to want to use it. And you bring, this process of doing the oils, it's kind of like a fine wine. You got to get it out of that bottle and open it up in a nice big glass to really get the bouquet on it.
Exactly. I find as far as scent goes with them, they are very similar to wine. And if you think about it with wine, it's very important to aerate the wine for the effect on your palate and the taste, which is tied so closely to our sense of smell.
Mhm. That's a great point, that it does have that ability, and we forget sometimes that we do need to get it in there, let it breathe, let it, take in this oxygen and these factors. And I find too, actually, in giving it that time, at least when I was doing some things, and I did not have the credentials you had in things, but I found that giving it that time, letting it age up, as you say, it also drew in a lot of the influences of what was going on at that time by doing it, as opposed to just taking it and dropping it in a bottle. It drew in whether it was a waxing moon influence or a waning moon influence, because I went from more of an energetic background with things. And so I think that, you do draw in a lot of these energy principles, and like you say, and that was something that I had mentioned in what I read earlier, is that concept of energy. And I think that you could have two people that use the same formulas, they put the oils through the same process, and you still get different scents. And whether one person is really focusing on that intent or not, whether one person is energetically aligned and open and pure in what they're creating in themselves, it seems to bring a different energy, because we know this just by feeling our emotions, that it affects things like water molecules or different things like this, and it seems to me it would do the same thing when you're creating oils.
I completely agree. I would rather have the shelf in my shop empty of our bestseller than to create product on a day that I did not feel I was in the best place to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to feel in a good place, and I feel I have to put my good intentions and set forth good, positive energy and the healing energy that's involved in the blend. And I just think that makes them that much more effective and powerful.
I agree. I had to completely, be in those spaces, and I oftentimes would do meditation or different things before I would even get started on them, because I wanted to make sure I was clear what I was bringing into that product. And these are another thing that, when you go to some of the big companies, as opposed to somebody, for example, like Wendy, you're not getting that kind of care and attention into the product. And I think that's some of those very things is why, like I mentioned earlier, that I had gotten this oil from Nepal, some sandalwood oil from there one time, and it had the most amazing aroma to it. And it was pure. It was a very pure oil, but the region it was coming from was a very spiritual region, not only because it was Nepal, but because of who was gathering it and how it was being put together, and the care and the blessing and everything that went into it to create it. And there's just so many of those pieces that come together. I would love for you, maybe, Wendy, to elaborate a little bit more. You started to touch on it, how the whole system connects, how these oils can really affect us on this mental and spiritual level. And you mentioned this, how it kind of connects a little bit like with brain chemistry, with the limbic system, and then it connects with the endocrine system. Is there more to that?
Yeah, when you were talking earlier about, in the intro, about essential oils through different cultures, I find it very interesting that during the Middle Ages, when the Black Plague was just decimating populations, people associated foul odors as a cause of disease. And even some of the medical theory of the time suggested that the nose gave direct access to the brain and hence the spirit. So if you were smelling something bad or you smelled bad yourself, that actually had an effect on your brain and hence your spirit. I found that very interesting from what you were saying earlier with the different cultures. I actually found a very interesting article recently about the sense of smell. Before, when they were studying the brain, of course, they didn't have the technology to really look at what happened to the brain while it was living and working. And a lot of the time they were understanding the brain through dissecting, of course, a brain from body that was no longer alive. Some of the new imaging methods they have now, like the the functional magnetic resonance imaging, and another one called positron emission tomography, is actually giving us the opportunity to really study the brain in a way that it's never been seen before while it's in a living being. And what they found, that the olfactory brain includes some smaller but very important regions, one of which is the amygdala. And there's several interesting features related to the anatomy of the olfactory parts of the brain. First, the olfactory regions do not only serve for smelling, but also used if we experience emotions and when we are memorizing events. This is the reason why odors can evoke very strong associations and memories of situations and place from a long time ago. Probably everyone knows an anecdote where he smelled a food or a perfume and was brought back to early childhood and remembers exactly the circumstances of when he smelled that odor. There's a second special characteristic of the sense of smell. For all the other senses, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, the information from the sensory organs, the eyes, the ears, the skin, the tongue, travels through a brain structure called the thalamus. The thalamus is something like a gate to our consciousness. If we focus on one sense, say on vision while reading a very interesting book, we can blind out information from the other senses and not hear that someone was talking to us. This is done by the thalamus, who decides what we are aware of and what not. Since smell information is independent of the thalamus, we cannot blind out olfaction. We either smell an odor or we do not. I found that very interesting. And when we're talking about sense of well-being and spirit and really being able to use essential oils with a sense of smell for emotional and physical wellness, I like to look at what's called psychoneuroimmunology, and that's the idea that anything that you perceive or how you take things in your mind and perceive them psychologically has an effect on your neurological system and, in turn, on your immune system. So a great way to use the essential oils just for overall well-being is by using that sense of smell with, say, meditation or hypnotherapy. If you can be in a hypnotic state or in a meditative state where you're thinking of being in a very calm environment, and you can get that feeling that you have in meditation and relate it to that sense of smell, that essential oil that you're smelling. When you find yourself in the middle of the subway or in a very stressful situation, if you have that oil around you and you can smell it, your olfactory brain, part of your brain, the limbic part of your brain is going to match that sense of smell with that sensation that you had and completely change your demeanor and outlook on the situation that you're in.
That's a pretty amazing aspect and concept there.
It really is. I have a Bulgarian high-altitude lavender, and being at a seaside town or an oceanside town, the Monterey Bay is well known for having huge kelp beds, and there's a certain smell from the kelp. And sometimes during the spring when I'm working into the early evening, we'll have a breeze come off the bay, and it's that salt air mixed with the kelp, and I'll be working with my Bulgarian high-altitude lavender, and the combination of those three scents smells just like rainbow sherbet to me. And I get such a huge sense of relaxation and well-being because it takes me back to the days of my dad taking me to Thrifty's and buying me a 5-cent ice cream cone with rainbow sherbet and walking through the parking lot with my hand in his. It's just an amazing effect that memory and smell can have on us.
You know, and that is such an important point for people to realize, too, is that smell locks in these memories so much deeper than what we realize. And I've heard that from a lot of people when I put my blog post out there this week, and they were commenting, it's like, man, I haven't thought about that in years, and I can still, by thinking of this memory, get that sense of smell coming through via my mind. And we talk about the limbic brain, and the limbic brain is highly connected to our spiritual processes and our spiritual body, by the way. And when we look at that connection there, this is one of the areas of how if somebody is really struggling with challenges and issues in their life and things like depression or even just personal frustrations or anger or things like this, that's affecting our spiritual body, which is then cascading into our so-called karma and what is manifesting in our life. And so by using oils and scents to affect that limbic brain, we can actually make that shift in our spiritual path to draw in. And this is how some of these things work when we see those oils out there. And it's a money blend, or like you say, your empower blend. It's literally shifting the whole aspect of the spiritual vibration to elevate it in a way that it connects so that we can open those doors.
Absolutely.
And that's powerful. That's powerful. And likewise,
smell. The really interesting thing to even back that up. Most of the nerves in our body, actually, I believe all the nerves except for one in our body, the nerves that are on the right side actually are directed into the left side of the brain, and the nerves on our left side are directed into the right side of the brain, which is different from reptiles. If you notice, reptiles will move their left leg and right leg, their left front and back front legs together at the same time, and their right front and right back legs together at the same time. We as humans do that opposite because of that crossover of the nerves. When our let's see, I'm trying to walk this out now. Usually when we're walking, when our left leg goes forward, our right arm is going back. And that is due to that crossover of the nerves in our brain. The olfactory nerves don't cross over. Your left olfactory nerve goes to the left side, and your right olfactory nerve goes to the right side. And I believe those are the only nerves in your entire body that connect to the brain in line like that.
I think what you meant to say is when your left leg goes forward, your right arm goes forward.
Yes, I did. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to clarify that for people.
You're exactly right. I think I got a little mixed up because I was trying to walk it out.
It's hard sometimes to, those are those automatic responses that we do. And it is powerful, and it's interesting. It's important, too, if people are tuning into these aromas and things from essential oils. It can be very enlightening as far as your own spiritual path, just as a tool to understand maybe some things that you've dealt with in your past because you can pick up one of these scents, for example, and you might, one person, for example, holidays time. Let's take the holidays, because lots of people start having aromas in their house during the holidays, whether it's potpourri or diffusers or herbs cooking on the stove or whatever it is, or candles or things like that. And so, when they're doing that, one person might smell, for example, apples and cinnamon, and it brings back all these fond memories of apple pies or, times that everybody came together and everybody was happy. and somebody else picks up that scent, and what they remember is not something joyous, but having to slave away 12 hours a day getting those apples off the tree or things. So it can definitely cue us in, actually, I think, to also a lot of insight about our own self and maybe some things we haven't realized trigger us in different ways that are part of our spiritual path that could be blocking or helping us.
Yes, definitely. And, you know, in talking about using the oils spiritually, using some of these ancient oils that have been around for ages and used in spiritual practices that have the reputation of helping to open the third eye or the crown chakra, or really just having you be grounded enough that you can get in touch with your spirituality. They're very powerful. The spikenard, Palo Santo, sandalwood, frankincense, myrrh. I mean, they've been known for ages and had a reputation for ages to be able to help one connect spiritually.
There's actually a therapy that utilizes that very concept. It's called raindrop therapy, and they're dropping the oils like right over your chakras, and they're designed to, you know, apparently go with the chakra energy to open it and affect the spiritual body. So yeah, there is some of that, and there you go. You know, those massage therapists just order up from Wendy to be able to use that and get those good blends in there. And I think too, there are a lot of these aspects of where it's not just affecting us as an individual, but the vibration of a place, which is oftentimes, I would say again, you know, we have these different smells that go with different seasons. You mentioned what happens to you, you know, in the springtime there, and I know this time of year some of the pine needles coming off the trees where I am, and matter of fact, I was mowing the lawn about a week and a half ago, and the pine needles were all over the ground, and you know, when I go through, then it kind of mulches them into the ground, and I was getting all these amazing pine aromas coming off. But one of the things we have here is ponderosa pines, which when you get up next to them, they have this amazing butterscotch vanilla scent to them, and it's just intoxicating to me. It's like, and it probably brings back some sort of childhood memories. But where I'm going with this is this time of year too, we go into stores and there's more of the potpourris there because of the seasonal time of year. We go into people's homes and there's more there. And it seems to shift the whole energy and the vibration to where people not only are playing into the holiday aspect, but these aromas perhaps have something to do with whether people are purchasing things more. We see this has come out in the years, like, you know, get this in there, and it's going to make people want to buy things more. Cinnamon scents have often been associated with, you know, like your spices, your earthy spices like that, cinnamons, nutmegs, and things have been associated with prosperity. And so, you know, you have to wonder, well, you know, how much is the scent that's in that store playing into how good people are feeling, how much they're wanting to spend and do things. And I would say there's probably a big influence. It's part of why we're happy when we walk into a place, because it is shifting the energy of that space, not just the individual. Yes,
and you know, for the holidays, that it tends to be a time of the year that I think even the most grounded and mellow of us end up with some tension and stress during the holiday season. And a lot of those pines, like Scotch pine, Norway pine, and black spruce, and the ponderosa that you mentioned, they have a reputation for being very good for stress and tension and anxiety, which we face a lot at this time of the year, where you could actually have a bottle that you would carry with you and inhale out of it. And if you wanted to take it a step further and use them around your house or your workplace in a diffuser, in diffusing them, they're also highly antimicrobial, which helps to keep down the virus load in the air.
Oh, that's perfect. We need that.
Yeah, the holiday blend that I usually have includes pinyon pine, which is just an amazing oil from Utah. And it has a sedative effect. And then I put a little bit of sweet orange in it, which is antidepressive, addresses nervous tension, really good for stress. And I use cinnamon leaf, which is also good for depression, tension, and exhaustion. So it's kind of a feel-good, smell-good, get you through the holidays type of blend.
I think that's great, and I'm glad you mentioned that. And I should mention too, also for people that I believe you do ship out anywhere. Isn't that correct, Wendy?
Yes, I do. Right now, we're finalizing our well, I guess I would call it our official website. But at this point, if you go to our webpage, we actually have an Etsy shop that we sell through right now online.
Oh, awesome. And, and I think that that's worth people knowing, and I know also your oils are really quite affordable, particularly for the quality level and the purity and everything that is there. And I think that that's just such a amazing thing as far as just that level and the care. And I have to stress that, having been there personally into your store, that I can personally attest that these oils are of some of the utmost quality that I've come across with somebody working in them. And as a matter of fact, I still have a little bit from an oil that you gave me, and it's a little tiny bottle, and sometimes we look at these things and we go, but it's so tiny, that's not going to last very long. And let me tell you, these little bottles go a very, very long way. And this was a Frangonia. And,
yes, Frangonia. That is an amazing essential oil. They only started distilling it in 2005 out of Australia. It's actually the only essential oil with a trademark name. It comes from a plant that's in the same family as tea tree called Agonis fragrans. And it is a wonderful oil for boosting the immune system. And it also has the reputation from some psychologists that have been working with it. It has the reputation of helping to release deeply embedded emotional hang-ups or issues.
I think it's incredible myself. Like I said, and I still have a little bit of this here, and I take it and I open it up and I smell it, and when you have these small bottles, again, even just having a little bit that you can open up and take a little whiff of, you don't even have to use them in a diffuser, but some of these things can really pick you up. And I remember, because you gave this to me, and it was an aspect of, you said, keep this on the road with you when you're running across them. And I think that is a good thing that you brought up, where, having some of these things, especially out in these seasons where allergies are coming up, the pollens are shifting in the air, the winter time, and more people are out and they're doing more coughing and they're stressing themselves more, that something like this can really just be that thing that maybe keeps you healthy during the season and during the year. And of course your Empower blend is absolutely amazing. Matter of fact, I remember we kind of ran an ad on that with the papers, not really an ad, but a post on that in the papers when I was out there, and brought it in as a good compliment with the book signing that I was doing there at your store. And but you have not only those, you have things. You have a amazing thing for, I believe it was kind of spicing up relationships, shall we say?
Oh, yes, Love Potion number 99. We like to say it's 11 times stronger than 9. Yes, we have that in a massage and body oil, and also a roll-on all-natural perfume. And I must say, I've had some clients come back in and say that they used to be single and they now have partners.
I was thinking about that. I was thinking now the next time I go to California, I wonder if Wendy will let me do a book signing with the relationship books and we could promote that Love 99 potion.
Oh,
Love
there
potion.
you go.
I was like, that could work. We could bring this together.
Definitely. I've also got another one when you're talking about just the inhalation for well-being. There was a 2-year study done by, interestingly enough, a couple of Western medicine doctors on ginger and peppermint for chemotherapy-induced nausea. And we actually have an inhaler we created for that. We have tried it out on some of the whale-watching boats in the area for motion sickness and have had wonderful results. And also for some individuals that were going in for surgery for post-operative nausea with excellent results. And someone the other day, another colleague, emailed me an article out of the International Journal of Anesthesiology where they actually did a study with about 1,100 people on the post-operative nausea with these oils, and their findings warranted more investigation on the use of essential oils as non-invasive treatment of the post-operative nausea. And again, that's just from smelling. That's just from inhaling the oils through the nose.
You know, what about somebody that maybe has like some vertigo issues or blood pressure issues? You know, as people start to age a little bit and they have some of these difficulties with getting around, like their head is just, you know, they're very challenged with some of that. They stand up, they get lightheaded or dizzy or things like that. And obviously some of the symptoms you need to go see a doctor for. But
if
in
it's
addition
related
to that,
blood pressure, there have been some oils that have the reputation for being helpful for lowering blood pressure. They have not been studied. It has not been proven in a trial. However, I think that goes back again to the psychoneuroimmunology. If we can control what's going on with us psychologically, we can actually help a lot of those other problems or challenges to dissipate.
Right. And that, I think, is such a big piece because there are so many times where our body is going to respond to those thoughts and those spiritual processes, and we don't always know where these things come from, and then a disease or something else has manifested physically with us, and the next thing we know, we're having all of these physical issues going on. So, as you say, a lot of times if we can impact in there on that thought level, on that psychology aspect level of things, it can really have a huge, huge impact in there. Now, let's say somebody's really psyched up by listening to you here tonight, because I always get psyched up by listening to you. There's, like, gosh, I miss working with all those oils because I used to have a ton of them all over the place. I was like, I was always in heaven when I was working with my oils. I mean, literally, I could just shut myself away for days and not talk to anybody if I had my oils around. But let's say somebody says, man, this is really interesting to me, and I would like to maybe explore this more, whether I want to maybe create some things for clients because I'm a massage therapist, or I'd like to explore this a little bit more and see if maybe this is something I want to do more as a career. What advice can you give them, like people that maybe want to create their own massage oils or things like that, or where do they get started with some of this, and how do they know that they're going to a place that is providing them with a reputable certification versus just a certification, right?
The best source is that I have seen, and I belong to the organization, is National Association of Holistic Aromatherapists. I may be wrong on this. You may have to Google it, but I believe their website is www.naha.org. they have a wonderful listing of schools, not only in the U.S. but also internationally, that they consider the curriculum to be worthy for them to suggest them. And that is a great place to start because you can get intro to aromatherapy all the way to advanced courses. And many of them are long-distance learning.
Okay, so like they can learn online or something like that, or?
Yes, some of them will. Some will offer maybe week-long courses, 5-day-long courses, very intensive courses, where you can get a good introduction to using essential oils and aromatherapy, and then possibly do a distance learning for the advanced aromatherapy, or even take their advanced aromatherapy courses.
Okay, awesome. And I know, too, you do some things there at your shop, so if people are wanting an excuse to go to California, like we need one, right, or they live out that way, they can certainly look you up, and your shop name is Alchemology. But you also do some courses. And what type of courses and workshops are you doing from your place there?
I'm just getting ready to put our spring, some to start in early spring. I'll be doing a introduction to aromatherapy course. I do a course on lavender where we look at about 7 different lavenders from different parts of the world and how they vary chemically wise and why you would use one over the other for certain medical conditions. I also do a same type of course on eucalyptus. We look at about 7 different species of eucalyptus and how they vary and which ones you would want to use for different situations. And I'm also putting together a blending course based on my trials and errors of what I've learned in being an aromatherapist and what's worked for me and what hasn't. In coming up with blends. That one will be a course that you would have to have some background in aromatherapy and essential oils. And we're also looking at adding a course for individuals that would be interested on making and selling products that would be more the business side on how you figure out how much your blend costs to make, what you need to do to figure in profit margin, what you would sell it for, how you have to set your price up if you're going to sell as a distributor versus just to retail. And that one really goes into some of the ins and outs of the business background of creating products and selling them.
That's fantastic, and that's a big piece that I think a lot of people really need if they're really looking at going into this. And is there anything, if somebody is going to take an oil and they say, I love this oil and I love this scent and this blend that you put together, Wendy, and now I want to take it and I want to add it to a massage oil or make it into a massage oil. Is there anything they should know about doing something like that, ones they should use or not use?
I'm sorry, as far as essential oils are concerned?
Well, if somebody comes in and they get a blend, let's say they go in and they buy your Love Potion 99. You already kind of do that in a massage oil. Or they come in and they say, okay, I've got the Empower blend, but I want to put it into, I want to add it to something that will work for a massage oil. Are there certain ones like hazelnut or grapeseed oil or things like that? Are there certain ones that are better to use versus other ones to do that?
It really depends on what your end goal is. Like when I do an oil for sore muscles or joints, I always make sure that I have apricot kernel oil in it as one of the carriers because that has natural anti-inflammatory capabilities. And it depends if for instance, and you bring up a good point because in talking on something like a massage oil or an oil to deal with a pain issue, the carriers can be just as important as the essential oils.
Yes.
The carrier or vegetable oils all have benefits in themselves. So that would play into it also in what your goal was for the oil that you were creating.
I'm glad you said that, because I think that's very important. And sometimes people go out and they get something and they're not thinking, like, oh, hazelnut oil is basically a hyperallergenic oil, and it's kind of non-staining like that sesame seed oil by Neutrogena or whatever, right? And they're not thinking, okay, hazelnut's an oil, so if you're allergic to nuts, you don't want to use a hazelnut carrier.
Oh, that's absolutely right. And another thing to consider, too, is if you're going to be making a product to sell, you have to look at the shelf life. Grapeseed oil is a wonderful oil, but it has an extremely short shelf life.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking at making, say, massage oils to sell to other people, or to sell to others for them to in turn sell, grapeseed would be a very bad choice.
So, see, there's all these little details in there that are so important to know. And, certainly I would encourage people, Wendy, that if they're not certain about something, and you're such a wealth of information, that they can certainly contact you, and I'm going to give you a chance to give that information out here in just a moment again, and say, hey, Wendy, I'm dealing with this thing, or hey, I'm caring for an elderly parent, and I'm wondering if you could have any suggestions for this, or I'm trying to overcome this challenge in my life. What do you suggest? Wendy has a tremendous amount of wealth of information. I had that opportunity to watch people come to her, and they come to her like people used to go to psychologists or a pharmacist away, and they come in, it's like, okay, I'm dealing with this, I'm lost, what do I do? And she has some amazing suggestions on things, and again, she can certainly ship things out to you where you can order direct from her products. And this is very useful to do. Instead of just trying to figure it all out on your own, check with her and ask her and use this resource. And she's very kind about being accessible. And I know at times you may need to get back to somebody, maybe after the shop closes down, because your little shop gets busy there. I was truly amazed. It was like it's amazing. It really does. You stay busy there. So go ahead and share, if you would, your contact information or anything that you have coming up that you want people to know about.
Okay. Well, if you do go to our website, it's www.alchemologyshop.com, and I believe there is a link on Jesse's information there. If you are interested in getting information on our upcoming classes, there is a sign up there for our newsletter. Do not be concerned about getting too many emails from me. We have a hard time getting them out on a monthly basis, but it's on our newsletter that we announce any product specials, sales, coupons, new products, and also, of course, information on our classes. And then I am also available. Best way to reach me initially is via email. Include your name, where you are located, which is important for what time of day I may return your call or give you a call, and also your phone number. And that can be sent to W. Kester, that's WKESTER, at soothing.science.com. And usually I can take a day or possibly up to 3 days to get back to you, just depending on what's going on. But if you do indicate that it's a situation that you're dealing with and need a reply quickly, I will do my best to do that.
And that's absolutely awesome. And I'm sure that Wendy would probably even provide some consultation services, and I don't necessarily mean just all free, but she might even be open to working with somebody in a consulting capacity is more the way, perhaps, to say that with people.
I do actually, Jesse. I do private consults, which they are $75, and that usually includes up to an hour phone call, and we talk about what what the expectations are from the aromatherapy blend I'm creating, and talk about what it would be for, if it's really geared towards the medical side. I talk about the of course, under complete confidentiality, the health issue and any medications that might be contraindicative. And then the blend that I create from that consultation is a separate charge, but I do my best to try to keep it under $25. Another thing that we offer, too, for individuals that may have a spa, have their own website, is we do work with people on doing private label products also.
I was just headed there. I was like, and people could, I'm sure, certainly carry your products.
Yes, we do wholesale too.
Spas and their salons and their bookstores, and as massage therapists, this is a great line to touch base with Wendy and say, Wendy, I want to carry some of your products or have them for my clients or things like this as well. Because we do have a lot of people that will tune into this show and listen to them, be it, every spectrum from musicians through massage therapists and Reiki practitioners and all of these people. And there's some, I know, amazing people out there that I come in contact with that obviously I'm going to say, really you might want to look at these oils.
Thank you. I appreciate that you brought that up because I just worked really hard on getting our wholesale program going. We do offer a wholesale program, and with it just getting off to the start, I do have to say that I have no intention whatsoever. I can't say that this would never happen, but I have no intention whatsoever of being in Whole Foods. So it would not be a product that you may carry and then your clients would go into Whole Foods and see it. And since we are just kicking it off, we have a lot of opportunity for distribution out there because the other thing is I don't have any intention of having 2 or 3 shops in the same small area selling the product. I'd like to make it make the Alchemology line exclusive to those in an area rather than flood the market.
Which I appreciate, and I know there's a lot of businesses and people out there that also appreciate that, and I think that's very powerful. And Wendy, we are winding down on your time, and I want to say thank you so much for this time because you have, I know, shed a tremendous amount of light for people on this topic and subject that I'm sure a lot of people don't even stop to think how much goes into a scent or an aroma or an oil blend when they walk in the store and pick it up, and how important it is to know and to realize some of these things that are happening. And you certainly have so much to offer people, from everything from the private label to the consultations to just products. And I shouldn't say just products, but to amazing products.
Well, thank you, Jessie. I've enjoyed it very much, and it's probably a good thing that you do have a time limit because I could keep everybody on the phone all night talking about essential oils and aromatherapy.
I can talk forever and a day too. So, but I do. I sincerely thank you for all your time and your energy into this, and for doing this work and bringing it into the world with so much integrity and quality and care and concern for for every avenue, from the plant and the oil to the individuals using it. And so thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And next week here on Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour, we are going to be welcoming, and I hope I get this term right, or this name right, Paramahansa Jagadish Das, who focuses on divine love transmissions. My books, again, on relationships have been released, and you can find the links to check those out and purchase them through my website at JessieAnnNicholsGeorge1.com. They're available through Amazon, CreateSpace, Smashwords, BarnesandNoble.com. I'm happy to say that Barnes & Noble picked up both the paperback and the ebook on that book. So lots of options depending on what your preference is for dealing with people. And they're designed to help you activate the perfect relationship for you and you'll learn how to find, develop, and maintain your perfect relationship, as well as to understand what your partner is thinking, feeling, needing, and how to communicate in ways to strengthen your relationship and avoid drama. I'm working on putting together the next Compassion Tour. You can stay on top of that as well with the event site that I have, JessieAnnNicholsGeorge.eventbrite.com, and you can follow up on new videos that have come out and purchase products and check out the monthly special and all of those great things. I have a huge array of things on my website. Again, that's JessieAnnNicholsGeorge1.com. You can also, on my website, follow all of our Main Street Universe hosts, catch the upcoming shows as well as the archive shows there, learn a little bit about the people that are a part of Main Street Universe here, and that's all listed at the bottom of today's show description. The special I'm running for the month of November is short reading and coaching sessions. I'm doing 10-minute sessions for $15 and 20-minute sessions for $30. And, again, right on my homepage, you can find out more details about how to take advantage of that special there. I've just started providing some online courses and experiences. They're at very affordable rates overall, basically right now. They start as low as $10. I'm doing everything from moon cycles and honoring the cycles of the year. I'm doing some courses based on my books right now. I'm just tomorrow finishing up the one on compassion, and then I'll be doing ones on relationships as well. And you don't actually have to be live and present in these courses, by the way. So you can go back and you can purchase courses that have already happened as a recording in there. And so they vary depending on whether, they're 1 hour, some of them are 3 hours long. There's quite a bit of variation in those. So you can certainly check those out. And you can learn all about those at learnitlive.com/invite/JessieAnnNicholsGeorge. And I also want to plug our producer, Daniel. He's got some things going on where he's trying to get some of his music up and running and get some acknowledgement and recognition for that. And I'm going to type in here a website. If you can go in and simply just share, you can just choose to share it on your social media, whatever ones you like to choose, share it through, and that will certainly help him out quite a bit here. And I'm, like I said, getting that typed in here. It is songwriter.revimage, that's REVIMAGE.com/channels/Daniel+Michael+, and just share the music there, and that's good up through tomorrow is going to help him out. And don't forget that we've got several shows right here on Main Street Universe throughout the week. Sunday nights we have Darren Bouquet, who is a reader at Madame Laveau in New Orleans, doing spiritual insights. Monday nights we have Kevin Baird walking on the sidewalk with his Horizon Oracle Journeys deck. This is a deck that he personally created, and you can learn more about that deck on his website at templeofgaia.com. Tuesdays we have Susan Weed, who is sharing her work in herbs and natural plants. Wednesday nights we have Daniel, Janice, and Brett hosting our flagship show called Main Street Universe. And then, of course, Friday nights right here, Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. This is Jessie Ann Nichols George. I want to thank you so much for being here tonight. I look forward to seeing you back here next week as we delve more into Activating Compassion. Don't forget, if you've enjoyed the show this evening, share it with others. It's going to be available at the same link in our archives. And I'm going to be leaving you tonight with the song Yearning For, which is also known as Over and Over by Shemshai. And thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you again next week right here on Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. May you enjoy the rest of your weekend and have an absolutely amazing week.
And if I could see what makes me blind, I would soar to the edge of my mind, and to touch what seems unreal, just to show you the way that I feel. And we are in time with time, one with the season of change inside. And we are in tune with the tune, caught in a balance of sun and moon. to the edge of eternity, and we see it eye to eye, one within love to be for the divine, and we're walking hand in hand, caught in the balance of God and man. Over and over, life is your lover, learning to walk just a little bit slower, whispering secrets that you can't keep it. No turning back now, this time we reveal it. One to another, all will discover the essence within the most beautiful lover. Time is still turning, the love is still burning. Deep in your spirit, your heart still yearning for. Yearning for. Yearning for.